my beard, you guys. Shalom, shalom. This is Jared Yao checking in. Um, I wanted to get on here and just talk about a couple. Oh, I think that's my wife. Yeah. I wanted to talk about a couple things real quick. Um, yeah, there's a lot of going on in the media right now. We've got these hurricanes that are coming back to back. Looking like there's going to be another one coming through in another week or so after this one. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people are in danger right now. So prayers to everybody in Florida and in North Carolina. Um, I hope everybody is able to find shelter and find safety. We don't know what's going on with the situation. Some people are saying that it's weather modification. We know that they do have the capability to do that. No matter what people may think about what that means as a power to have, as human beings, whether they human beings, bel well, bel whether people believe that human beings can wield that power or not, the evidence shows that it's something that's possible, right? The forces of nature work, some of them by means that can be manipulated. So, weather control may be a strong word. I think weather modification is more of an accurate assessment about what's going on. I think that the conditions arise and they're able to manipulate based on these conditions and, move weather patterns in a certain direction that or intensify weather patterns that were already headed in a certain direction. And it's possible that, it takes years and years and years to do these things, right? I don't think it just starts off that you can just slap a hurricane into somebody. I think it takes you years of building up atmospheric pressure. These things don't happen just, you have to have the right conditions. So um, I do believe it's possible, believe that. And I do believe it's possible in these situations, specifically with it being three back to back like this. I think it's possible in this situation. But I don't know, and we can't necessarily know. We always take Elohim out of the factor. Um, whether or not these storms are coming based on manipulation, we know Elohim is always the main factor here. And if people are getting hit by the storms, um, there's more than likely a reason behind it. And, this is not something that we also can speculate on. We can't speculate on whether or not these weather modifications, and then if they were or if they weren't, we can't speculate that, they were a punishment meant for a specific group of people. So, it kind of is what it is in America right now. And with it being the way that it is, we pray for the people that are caught in the storm or, underneath the storm. So, um, what I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about today is the same thing that we talked about the other day. I guess this has been a little while ago now, about the nature of reality, the nature of the world around us, and how it exists in multiple layers, right? That there are, excuse me, that there are realities superimposed on top of reality, and the people that are living in one, may or may not see the people that are living in the other. And I don't mean in a supernatural context, I mean in a real live, multiple world scenario in one world. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like a secret world hidden within the world that we know. And the way that we described this secret world is through a movie that came out in the 90s. We talked about it last time. It was starring Michael Douglas. And if you missed the last video, go back and watch the last one. It was a couple weeks ago. It was a live, so you would have to look in the live category. But it was a movie It was made in the 90s, and it was, I'm just going to go over real quick just in case you missed it, missed the first one. A movie made in the 90s that was about a guy who was a, business tycoon, a real successful individual that came from a troubled past. He had a father that took his own life when Michael Douglas's character was young, and this traumatized him, but also made him into the business tycoon that he was. Right, made him cutthroat and ruthless in all of these other areas. So he ended up making a lot of money. And so as he became rich and his life also began to kind of go into the toilet, the more money he made, the more his personal life kind of sank into the toilet. Um, he looks up and feels kind of just empty with nothing, all this money, but also having nothing. Um, and so his brother, who's also traumatized, uh, gives him an invitation to this game. And, he kind of does it in a sly way, like, oh, well, you'll thank me later. And Michael Douglas, the Michael Douglas character, we're just going to call him Michael, he takes it and decides, he ain't doing nothing else. He'll just, sign up for it. And it's some sort of interactive game, right? And so he goes and he signs up for it. And they do a psychological test on him. They do a stress test, a physical test, um, and then they pull him in and say, "I'm sorry, you're just not cut out to be a part of this game. Better luck next time." And so he goes out of the office, and this is big office with lots of people running around. And he goes out of the office like, well, I ain't really want to do that anyway, you know, and kind of feeling down too, like they rejected me. You know what I mean? Who do they think they are to reject me? And what he doesn't know is that this is a part of the game, that now he's in the game, and that everybody in reality is now possibly a part of the game. So he goes home from this meeting with this guy in this big warehouse, not a warehouse, this big office complex in a tall building, and the whole floor is dedicated to this company. And he goes home, and his TV starts talking to him. The newscaster on the TV starts talking to him and says, "Hey, we know, that are now in this game, and this is the way that it operates. Anybody could be a player, nobody could be a player. The object of the game is to figure out what the object of the game is, right?" And so they now have him. Basically, he's in this game, and everybody he runs into is either a part of the game or, playing as like a secondary role in the game, right? And so he doesn't know who he can trust, and he's going from place to place, and everybody he meets is potentially an enemy or, a friend, and he's got to look for clues in life. Shalom, shalom. We got one person on here. Oh, looks like they left. And you have to look for these clues in his life to figure out what's going on. And then the crazy part about it is, everywhere that he goes, different people are in on the game. So he's in New York, and he waves down a taxi cab, and he gets in. And forgive me if I'm getting this movie all mixed up here, but I'm thinking that this is, what's going on in the movie. I think there's a scene that's like this, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it was something like this. He gets into this cab, and the cabbie says, "Hey, where you headed, bud?" And he says, "Downtown, Fifth Avenue, whatever, someplace." And he says, "Sure thing, Mike." And he knows the guy's name. And he says, "What?" And he locks the doors, right? And then the cabbie is just, racing through the street. And he said, "Better luck next time." Opens the door, jumps out, and crashes the car with Michael Douglas in it. And, beats him up. Nearly, could have hurt him really, really bad. But this is the nature of the game. that you have to figure out where you are, what you're doing, how to avoid these conflicts, and if it wants to kill you, it it could be anybody coming from anywhere, right? And this is how it actually is in real life for these celebrities. You have to understand when you look at the music industry, when you look at the movie industry, when you look at sports, any entertainment industry, anything that you see on TV, these are all Michael Douglases. Do you understand what I mean? These are all people that have sold their souls to the game and they cannot get out, right? And so what we come to realize is that the game is the secret underground satanic cult that runs America. Just so happens that there's enough people secretly in it, scattered throughout society, that are influential in all of these places to be able to hide that they actually exist and run the country. And the only way that because you're programmed by the propaganda, so there's two ways that you know. The first way is through Spirit of Yahweh, Elohim of Yisrael. That's the first way you know. The second way you know is if you're in the cult. Otherwise, you have no idea. Otherwise, it's behind the scenes controlling everything, and you believe everything it tells you. Therefore, you believe it doesn't exist, right? But if you're in it, all of a sudden, and this is 95% of the the world that doesn't recognize that it's there, and it's 1%. There's 5% that does, and or 1% that does, and then 5% that are involved, right? But that 5% are scattered 1% in every percentage of everywhere else in the world, and that 1% is the leaders, the leadership, and so they have control over all of these different things, and you would never know, right? You would never know, guys. And I'll give you a story how you know how wild it is that you would just never know, that you would, you know, that you should know, but you wouldn't. It's like in your face, but being also hidden, right? So you guys check this out. When I was in the military, this is the way that it works. You see what I'm saying? When I was in the military, I was uh, deployed to Iraq, and I was deployed to Iraq with a brigade called the Devil's Brigade, right? I was deployed with First ID, and First ID is known as the Devil's Brigade. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not called that for nothing, but while I'm in the Devil's Brigade, I'm just walking, talking like a regular person, right? But I'm literally doing the devil's work because I'm a soldier in the army of Babylon. And I'm fighting in ancient Babylon people that ain't got nothing to do with me. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm literally doing the devil's work in the devil's brigade. And I think it's a game. I just don't have any sort of idea at all. And it's crazy because, I'm thinking I'm drinking the Kool-Aid because I'm thinking we're liberating the Iraqis and we're doing the exact opposite, right? And so we're there, and I'll give you this story. They called us while, in Iraq, they called us crusaders. You see what I'm saying? They called us crusaders. This is a European invasion of, Asia Minor in the in the 10th and 11th and 12th centuries AD. This is the Crusades that they're talking about, and that's 1,000 years ago, nearly 1,000 years ago, and they're referencing, the American army as the Crusaders. It's just mind blowing and blew my mind. I knew who the Crusaders were, and that they saw everything in a religious context. It blew my mind, right? That they were looking at it like, oh, the Crusaders are back. It's just, and the Crusaders hadn't been there for 800 years. You see what I'm saying? It's just an amazing reference, right, for the regular, average, everyday person um, to say. And that's what they would all call us is, oh, you guys, you crusaders. It's crazy. So, so I'm in Iraq, in Babylon, in the Devil's Brigade, right? And I'm there, and we've got this colonel, this hotshot colonel, right, who is over the brigade. And is he a lieutenant colonel or is he a colonel? I'm thinking that he's a colonel because he was the big dog, right? And so he went into the major city that we were in because we weren't in, well, we were in one of the big cities. So he goes into the city, but before he goes into the city, he wanted to spray paint, and he did. He ended up spray painting the devil's face on his Humvee. And, this is, I'm hearing this from, you know, the people that survived it, because this is a whole thing, right? This is from the survivors. And they all survived, but the Iraqis didn't. So these are the people that survived the attack, and they all survived. But it was an attack. So what the colonel did was he requested that the devil's face be spray painted on his Humvee. And they did it, his soldiers did it. And according to them, it was for the purpose of saying to the Iraqis who he was. This is what he said about him spray painting the devil's face on his Humvee was that the Iraqis could know who it is. Do you see what I'm saying? So he literally was saying, this is who he is, that devil, right? And he absolutely was, right? So I'm not recognizing that this is, something that's supernatural. This is not a coincidence. It's not a game. It's not, tough guy talk. This is somebody that is at a high echelon of military operations who is masquerading as the devil. You don't do that unless that's absolutely who you are, right? And this is that cult showing its face. So the outcome of him doing this, putting his face on the Humvee, putting the devil's face on his Humvee, is that the Iraqis, of course, noticed and put a $50,000 bounty on his truck, so that every time you saw the truck, that somebody went after it and would get 50 grand if they were able to destroy it. So one day, one bright, sunny Iraqi day, um, the colonel had his convoy together and he decided to go out into the city, which he liked to do. Dang. Which he liked to do. Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. We got one person on here. The colonel, I'm talking about a story which lets you know the satanic influence. Uh-oh, somebody's gone, so I don't have to repeat it. We'll just keep going. Whoever that was is gone now. Um, so this colonel goes ahead and goes out into the city and does his patrol like he liked to do. Wasn't even doing anything, just liked to patrol around the city because he could, right? And 80 people took him up on that bounty. 80 people took him up on the bounty. They were at the soccer field in this particular smaller city, mid-sized city in Iraq. And they took him up on the bounty. 80 guys went to try to destroy the Humvee and the passengers of that Humvee. And if you know anything about military operations, anytime you go out on a patrol, you have the target car, or the car with the brass in it, the car with the commander in it. And then you have two front cars and a single follow car. Or you could have the commander car being the second. So the commander car will be either the second or the third in the convoy. And you'll have, three, basically gun trucks that would provide security detail for target truck for your commander truck. And of course, this guy's commander truck was marked. And so they tried to get that bounty. And, all of the trucks had guns on them, had 50 cals, and they were, swivel 50 cals. So they could, you know, very easily, spot a target and eliminate the target. And do you know, guys, that all 80 people that went up to collect that bounty, that all 80 people were killed? That those four trucks opened up on them with 50 cals and killed all 80 people. You understand what I'm saying? Killed all 80 people. They had, came after them with grenades and rockets and AKs, but there was just no match for these four trucks. I had a buddy who was in that convoy, who was in that security detail, and came out of the situation completely. He was in the battle and came out of the situation a completely different person. A guy that was not so animated before the incident. Kind of a laid back guy. But after the incident, he was, so laid back that he never said a word. Right? He was on like pills every day. And this has been 20 years ago. I don't know whatever happened to the guy, but I know he was released from the military, based on his trauma. So I say all that to emphasize that these people are in society and they make up um, the upper echelon of society, and they run the world, and they have operatives hidden within the world, and this is how they are able to manipulate the media and um, the way that people think, the way that people believe. And it's crazy because it apparently has always been that way. There's always been this subculture that was secret within America that actually ran all of America through a cult, right? You guys have heard of the Freemasons. The Freemasons are just one of these secret groups that all, kind of are the same thing. Do you see what I'm saying? They're all just different aspects of the same satanic cult. One of the denominations of Satanism is Freemasonry. Do you understand what I mean? So you have all of these Freemasons who, have varying degrees of knowledge as to what it is that they believe in, but all, able to be activated towards a singular purpose. Do you see what I'm saying? That you could activate a Freemason that is like a car salesman in order to do a specific thing or say a specific thing as somebody is passing through. Maybe somebody has led someone else to this person. And when that person gets there, this Masonic operative can say a few key words and, have his part of the duty be done to whatever is going on. Do you see what I'm saying? So Michael Douglas was entering into this game, and part of the game was psychological warfare, just terror, right? I'll tell you that once he realizes that the game in the movie, that the game is trying to kill him, he goes back to the building where he signed up for the game, and all these people were running around and clipboards and printers, and this big office with busy office. And he goes up to the floor, that floor that the office, the whole floor was dedicated to this one company. He goes up to that floor and the whole thing is empty, right? As if there was no company ever there ever. Do you see what I'm saying? The type of games that, that the movie portrays are some of the things that they're probably doing to people because they have this wild control and these hidden people and these hidden groups that can be activated to do these things at any time. Do you understand what I mean? So the Freemasons are one of these secret groups that the Freemasons can be, called as operatives at any time. The other one of these secret, or the other ones of these secret groups are fraternities and sororities. They take oaths, they take pledges, and they have to follow the line down from their commanding officer, or whatever it is that they call them, the upperclassmen or whatever it is, their rank structure in these things. They have to follow orders, right? And these orders come from someone who is pledged into something else. Do you see what I'm saying? These are these mini cults. Do you see what I mean? How people can be activated out of context to do a thing, and then you don't know what it is that the purpose is, but this random person, like a bartender, you could imagine a fraternity member being a bartender. You go to this random bar, this taxi cab driver takes you to this random bar, and you go into the bar, and the bartender is, flirting with you and all that, and this is the sorority girl that's been sent to follow you. Do you see what I'm saying? Sent to seduce you, right? This is the game that they play. Do you see what I'm saying? It could come from anywhere, it could be anybody. And that's why it gets really deep, because these people don't mind like having kids with you as a part of the game, controlling you through, children that you share together. Do you see what I'm saying? You have operative families where operations have included having children with the person, that the person that you're with is an a CIA asset. Do you see what I'm saying? The person that you're with is an FBI informant, and they were told to introduce themselves to you, and now you've started a family with this person that was sent there in the first place to monitor you. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the way that this game works. This is the way that it operates. And it operates uh, like this on many, many levels, right? You have another cult group that is specialized, that is sworn in by oath, the police department, the CIA, the FBI, who we were just talking about. All these people are also active in the cult and can be activated at any time. And each one has a specific ability. Like if you're an FBI agent that's in the cult, because the whole FBI is a cult in itself. So your contacts in the FBI can get you all sorts of information. Your contacts in the local police department may get you a whole other set of information. But either one can operate on your behalf. Some of the things that they were doing to Michael Douglas was sneaking into his house and, spray painting his walls up so that when he goes home, he sees all this random graffiti in his house and he's going crazy, calling the police. And he doesn't know that the police are probably the ones that did it. Do you see what I'm saying? Because these are the people that are involved in the cult and can get into your house because you've got a security code to get into the house. They can sneak into your house. They've got access to the backdoor systems and the security and the security apparatuses because they are wired into the mainframe. Do you see what I'm saying? They can get from, FBI backdoor to all the security companies. The security companies make backdoors for this reason. You guys know that every security company has a built-in backdoor. So there's no way that you can secure yourself in an electronic system that doesn't have a way into it. Do you see what I'm saying? And these groups have those things. They have these backdoor keys. So it's probably them that, are set up to get, and this is a fictional situation, but it's a real life thing that they do. They probably set Michael Douglas up to leave the apartment or the house so that they could come in, bypass the security code, graffiti the house. He comes home, calls the police. They send him back outside, and they send him somewhere else. They lock the door so that he can't get in, because this is what happens in the movie. He has to spend the night at a hotel. His cards decline. They have no record of who he is. This is the type of power that this cult group has. They could wipe you out digitally. Do you see what I'm saying? And then you can't, there's nothing you can do. Just cancel your card. Do you see what I mean? Nothing he could do. He got all the way to the hotel and they're like, who? Michael, who? Do you see what I'm saying? He comes home the next day, the spray paint is gone. His house is spotless. It's like it never happened. These are the type of psychological games that they absolutely do play in real life. We see Martin Lawrence, and we talked about this last time. We see Martin Lawrence waving a gun in the middle of traffic, and this is in the 90s. Y'all remember it if you're the same age as me. He's in the middle of traffic holding a gun, yelling, they're trying to kill me. They're trying to kill me. Who's trying to kill you? Right? Who? It's the cult. But nobody knows, next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, Martin's recovering from schizophrenia. He's on pills. He's this and he's that. Anything but there being a real life secret group of people that were trying to kill him, like he said that there was. Do you see what I'm saying? Why people run into Africa? Wesley Snipes running to Africa. Dave Chappelle running to Africa. Because they see the game and don't want, they entered into the game and then try to get out of it. And they don't let you out. Once you sell your soul, that's it, right? You're slated for death. Whether you repent or not, you're still slated for death. Of course, Elohim is the one that, calls the shots. Um, but if you make the decision to go into, a death cult, then you can't really be surprised at what happens to you, from that death cult. Martin is in the middle of traffic waving a pistol saying they're trying to kill me. That doesn't come out of nowhere. That's not nothing. He's not crazy. He's not a crazy person to be, he's not known for carrying pistols or doing anything like that. He's a comedian. You see what I'm saying? But something has drove him to be in the middle of the street waving a gun around, yelling they're trying to kill me. In the movie, The Game, Michael Douglas does the same thing. They're everywhere. They're trying to kill me. It's this guy. It's the cab driver. It's the waitress. It's the bus boy. They're all trying to kill me. Oh, you sound crazy. You see what I'm saying? Because the rest of the world don't know that he's in this game. And this is how the game plays. And it's not a new thing. Apparently the game has been around for a long time. And like we talked about, there's different aspects of it. The Freemasons, the fraternities, the sororities, the three-letter agencies, the police department, all of these areas are, potential members, right? With with special abilities in each, excuse me, special abilities in each aspect. Not new, been around for a very long time. All of these groups been around for a very long time. You've heard of the Fraternal Order of Police. You see what I'm saying? All these groups connect, and they have an oath to something else, to someone else. All these groups, right? And so we know that these groups have been around for a long time because we see the things that have happened to people that have been in the cults or too close to the cults or whatever it is. And we've seen the cult kind of collapse on these people. Do you see what I'm saying? This is why when you investigate any of these high profile murders, it seems like it comes from all of these different places, right? It seems like it comes from everywhere. And I'll give you a few examples from the modern context, so that you can get a real good understanding, as to what it is that you're dealing with before you go trying to sign contracts or go to Hollywood or, live that lifestyle, just in case you don't know. So we are familiar with the guy, his name is Takeoff, right? Do you guys remember Takeoff? And maybe some of you know Takeoff, maybe some of you don't. Um, but he was a member, and this is not somebody that I was necessarily super familiar with either. He was a part of a group called Amigos, and I never really listened to the Amigos that much. They were younger than I was, and by the time they came out and were real popular, I wasn't listening to a whole lot of rap music like that. So they weren't necessarily legends to me like they were for some other people in my community, right? From, generations that came like right after me. But one of the guys in the group, Takeoff, ends up getting killed, right? Shalom, shalom. I said I got a couple people on here. But one of the guys from the group, the Migos, ends up getting killed, and we're just talking about the game. We're talking about the looks like everybody dropped out, but we're talking about the game, which is a movie that came out in the '90s. But the movie really depicts in real life that there is a game being played in the background, and it's a satanic cult that runs America and really terrorizes America through these different cults and these different agencies, doing what, the will of the adversary is. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, oh man, I was just talking about, oh yeah, talking about Takeoff. And so, I did a little bit of research into his death because, of course, he's one of the key figures in, this generation of rap. So he's an important and influential person, right? The rappers today are the preachers of yesterday, and we're going to get into that. Um, but this guy is killed. He's killed right in front of his buddy. Like his buddy's right there. Quavo, I think it's his cousin, um, right there next to him, and he gets shot down, right? And of course, they get the guys that do it, and they charge these specific people. But the setup is all crazy because, they're at this protected function. So it's supposed to be a protected function with this big time record producer slash halfway a gangster, Jay Prince, right? And there's this controversy in Texas about, how could this have happened with Jay Prince being in control of the security? There should have not have been, he should have been a protected individual because he's $1 million man. How would you allow for something so crazy to happen under your watch? There wouldn't be something that, anybody would dare try because you're there, and then you would, be the enforcer and the protector of these $1 million men. This means that you must be implicated, right? That you must be somehow implicated in the murder just because it happened at your function and you control your function, right? If you control your function, you could have stopped anything crazy from happening just because you're the enforcer in your function, right? So that means you must have been involved. And so this is one person that's involved, but there's another, right? This guy Quavo ends up shooting a music video. Like, this is the other member of the group, the Migos, is another one as well. But he ends up shooting a music video, excuse me. And in the music video, it's got all this reference. This is before the murder of his nephew. I think it's his nephew, Takeoff. Um, but it's got all these references to the, the murder. It's got references to him dying. This guy in the video, it's got references to him dying before it happens. And they put out the video the day before this guy dies, right? Takeoff dies. And so this is self-implicating his cousin, his nephew, his uncle, or whatever it is, in the murder as well. And then you look at the scene, and the entire scene is everybody is kind of focused on Takeoff. And then Takeoff seems to be drugged, right? He seems to be swaying a little bit too much. He seems to be intoxicated, right? And this is what happens when it kind of collapses around you, that everybody that's at the function is playing a specific role. And the only person that is actually just unaware of what's happening is you, or the target individual, right? If everybody's there and everybody recognizes that it's a play and you're the only one that doesn't, then it's easy for the event to happen around you, especially if it's actually directed towards you. And that's what all of these high profile, you know, murder cases look like. All of these assassinations appear to be um, set up by all the people around them. And it's also including the news media, because the news media follows whatever narrative does not implicate, the people that should be implicated. It also involves the police department because no investigations go into the right directions. And you see all these cases coming up like the Young Dolph case, and a bunch of these different cases. And you see people going to jail for them, but you don't recognize that they are high profile political murders. And high profile political murders don't just happen in no gang wars. You don't have no, $22 million man just get shot down at a cookie shop. Do you see what I'm saying? No. You have an entire orchestrated event happening. And you can talk about that one. Is the owners of the cookie shop appear to be involved. You know, young Dolph's own proteges appear to be involved. His enemies appear to be involved. Do you see what I'm saying? All these people look like they're players in his death because they are. They're all a part of this underground and secret and invisible satanic cult that just so happens to turn against one person when it's time for that person to be sacrificed. All the normal places where this guy would have felt safe and felt comfortable now are the enemy, because they now, do you see what I'm saying? They now are um, activated in order to portray this plot, right? And so this is what the game works like, right? And let's look back a little bit further. You can see how it works with people in modern day. You can see how with you know um, with his name is Takeoff. With Takeoff, it appears to be his enemies and his friends, his family that set him up and portrayed his death even in advance. Do you see what I'm saying? You can see that it's the people that young Dolph trusted, the owners of the cookie shop, and his people that he signed, and all sorts, and then his enemies too. This whole group collapsing in on him. But you can take it back a little further to Martin Luther King, you guys. What's crazy, what's really crazy, is that we all, were raised to idolize the ideology of Martin Luther King. Do you see what I'm saying? We were all taught in school that Martin Luther King's perspective to racial conflict was the mature and enlightened perspective. Do you see what I'm saying? How Martin Luther King was a pacifist by nature. He was the literally turn the other cheek type of guy. Um, do you see what I'm saying? That's what he portrayed. That's might not be who he was, but that's definitely what he portrayed. And for a purpose, right? This was political propaganda that was purposefully put in our faces to pacify the population. Do you understand what I'm saying? Martin Luther King's influence was um, uh, desegregation. And we didn't need to be desegregated. We needed to be segregated so that we could um, prosper in our own communities. But the way that Martin, played it was to try to put us into their communities, into their schools, so that they would have to educate us instead of, what they actually did, which was learn to um, to oppress us, while promoting the person next to him as well. Do you see what I'm saying? So our downfall came from integrating into the society that didn't want us to be there in the first place, and therefore losing our ability to create our own communities and run our own things. Do you see what I'm saying? Putting us in the same uh, putting us in the same plantation, but with people that were not in the plantation too. This was Martin Luther King's job. This was his role. Do you see what I'm saying? To pacify the public. And so, doing this, it appears, and this is not going to be popular, but in doing this, it actually appears that Martin was a part of the game, that he was involved with some high profile people that appear to be not on the up and up. Do you see what I'm saying? Apparently, he was trained as a communist, that he was raised as a communist. Apparently, his, PhD work was plagiarized, right? And this is all stuff that comes from, some of these websites that you get these things from are not, you know, our style of websites. But some of them turn out to be true. Some of these things turn out to be true if you do the research on them. Do you see what I'm saying? So it appears that he's floating through academia and being propelled into the spotlight, by unseen forces, which means he's a part of this game, right? He's a part of the play, and he's playing himself a role. And in this role, Martin Luther King ends up dying. That's a part of the role that he has to give his life, to solidify this pacifist doctrine. Do you see what I'm saying? So he doesn't recognize that this was what's going to happen, even though he knows that there are people after him. He recognizes also that he works for the FBI. He works for the FBI. This is what being a part of the game means. It means that you're actually working for the police. Even though you're pretending to be arrested and all these things are going on, you're actually undercover. You're actually on an undercover mission, right? And so Martin Luther King is on this undercover mission as a political preacher that is influencing black people into pacifism. That's what his role was, right? And, in this role, like we said, to solidify it as a model for black citizens to not think past their current position, he has to die there. He has to die as the subordinate, quiet soldier. Do you see what I'm saying? And in order for that to happen, the people that were closest to him had to be his murderers, right? Or at least had to lead him into the direction in order to be murdered, in order to be in the scene, in the scenario. Do you see what I'm saying? So the people that were closest to him were people like Jesse Jackson. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? Jesse Jackson was a part of Martin Luther King's entourage. And didn't Jesse Jackson go on to be one of the most famous black political activists of all time? Doesn't he always have a spot, or didn't he always have a spot on CNN? Wasn't his commentary always the preferred commentary when it came to black events? Wasn't he the person that was reached out to most often in every situation the black community experienced? It's not by mistake. It's because he was rewarded for his role in the murder of Martin Luther King, you guys. So I've seen some documentaries that go a long way to explaining how they set Martin up to be murdered. They even, because we know the police department in Memphis was involved because of all the events that happened around Martin's murder, how they sent police away and how they sent security details around the way, how they had new cops. They wouldn't let any black cops do surveillance on them because, of course, Martin Luther King had a police detail that protected him every city that he went to. You don't just get that and be a regular preacher. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to be a part of the system to get something like that. You have to be a part of the system to get a holiday after you die. You understand what I'm saying? So, with all this being said, his regular security detail wasn't there. There were no black officers, there to protect him. Lots of things changed when Martin Luther King was at the Lorraine Motel, so we know that the police were involved, right? And the guy, James O'Ray, that they set up to be the fall guy, we know wasn't him. If it was even, had anything to do with him, he was definitely not the only one. It was even said that there was a cue for the sniper. Do you see what I'm saying? A cue for the sniper to know which person to shoot from a long distance, because all of the people that were, and this may be one way or the other, you guys have to, correct me if I'm wrong, that all of the members of the group were wearing long ties, and Martin was the only one with the short tie. Do you see what I'm saying? Martin was the only one with the short tie, or it was the other way around. Everybody else had the short ties, and Martin was the only one with the long tie. Whatever it was a distinct clothing difference to point out from long distance who the target was. And that can only come from the people that are closest to him. Do you understand what I'm saying? That can only come from the people who are closest to him. His wardrobe is put together by his people, you know, put together by his team. Do you see what I'm saying? So for him to be wearing the thing that targets him as the target means that his entourage were the people that took him out. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is why you have the iconic photo of everybody pointing in the same direction from where they thought they heard the shot come from. Do you see what I'm saying? People being on scene to get the shot of the century, just like Trump doing the fist pump after the false fake assassination. This is the real one, except the people being on site to take the shine from the fallen soldier. Do you see what I'm saying? And then go on to develop that into a very lucrative career. The reward for being the good soldier, in the game, taking out this figure in the black community and playing your role, in that apparatus collapsing in on this particular person. The very closest people to you when you're in this game are the ones that are going to be taking you out, right? This is the nature of reality today. This is modern day satanic cult worship. You see what I'm saying? And it stretches all the way back to the time of Martin Luther King. Am I saying that MLK was a member of this secret satanic group? I am. And I'm also saying that Malcolm X was not. By proxy, yes, because he's in the Nation of Islam and they've got their, satanic structure too. They're one of these denominations as well. But Malcolm was, legitimately deceived, and we can see that. Martin was not. Martin was playing into the hands of his controllers. Do you see what I'm saying? So we can tell for sure, without a doubt, that he was taken out in the same way that, these modern day preachers, these rappers are taken out now, because they're all in the same game. And I'll tell you another one, and I'm not getting a whole lot of participation with this. We got one person on now, but I'll tell you another one where you can tell that the system, the game, whatever you want to call it, collapsed in on this person, where there's, looks like everybody's involved in his murder. And this is one that goes all the way back. This is around the same time period. You've got MLK, and then you've also got JFK. Do you guys see? This is how it works. This is the satanic system. Everybody looked up to JFK. Everybody looks up to him, right? All of the people that, talk about the good presidents and who was a good president, they all say JFK. History teachers say JFK, JFK, right? And he was a crook. He was a criminal. It's just like his dad. They was bootleggers, right? They were womanizers. They were gamblers. They were gangsters. It's a family of Irish gangsters. All they were, right? But because he knew how to talk and, because he was a ladies' man, people seemed to gravitate to JFK, right? He got to date all these famous people and, kind of live this luxurious lifestyle, but managed to maintain this image of this, shining example of, democratic uh, presidential feel, presence. I don't know. But, he's looked at well in history and he wasn't really a good guy, right? So we know that he didn't do anything for racial topics. He pretended as if there was no racial stress and strife. And this is the 60s we're talking about. So to pretend it didn't exist was to be complicit, even though he had some, reference to Martin Luther King and, you know, just a very minimal support. But again, we're talking about a person that was controversial in his time, right? And for whatever reason, they wanted to kill him. And they did, right? That's why people always say that, oh, it was the mafia that killed them, or oh, it was this group that killed him, or it was that group that killed him. It seems like it's everybody. The police fell back, the Secret Service, some of them fell back. It could have been any of these different people. The person in the tower, the person in the grass, the person, wearing the suit, the person with the umbrella, all these different groups of people that are, you know, seemingly unconnected, but they are all connected because they're all in on it. You've got the guy in the car with him, that gets grazed, but he's in on it too. He's this his state. This is the governor of the state, right? Or the mayor or something like that. This is the governor. The leadership of the state. So he controls the state like a mafia boss. So he's not gonna have his, Secret Service detail fall back so that the president can get shot on his territory, his watch. I mean, you got to be the worst person ever. You got to be the worst host of all time if the president gets shot while you're supposed to be looking after him, unless you're in on it, right? Because you control the amount of police that you have watching, being security. So if you're telling policemen to get on somewhere, if you're telling certain guys to get lost, that doesn't come from the police department. It comes from you. You're the one that controls the police department. So you can't. I mean, as soon as you see the security details going back, you're supposed to be on the line. Where's the security detail? Why is that what the other passenger is doing? No, he's not. The vice president, Lyndon Johnson, from Texas. You see what I'm saying? Implicated just by being from Texas. He was one, right? So I think you had who was the vice president by that time, but was the former governor. But these both of these men are implicated. The police chief implicated, but you guys will never guess who was the one that actually pulled the trigger. And I know I get into some, conspiracy gossip or whatever you want to call it, but these things are important to know so you can know what's going on around you. If you ever want to enter into that world, these are the reasons why you shouldn't. If biblical understanding isn't enough, you'll find why you don't want to be there. But you guys have heard of Jackie Onassis, right? Formerly Jackie Kennedy, right? Because I've looked into this. I've wondered what this was. This was a hallmark moment in the United States history when the president was shot in front of the world on film. This is like the most brutal assassination in, you know, democratic history. It's one of the most brutal assassinations of all time, if not the most brutal assassination of all time. The murder of JFK on film in front of everybody, right? This is a hallmark watershed moment in world history when the president of the United States, the king of the world, as far as many people are concerned, based on the supremacy of the United States, is murdered in cold blood in front of everybody. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how wild that is? And you'll never guess who was the one that they got to pull the trigger. It was the woman sitting right next to him. You guys watch that video, and I don't recommend you go too deep into this because, it is what it is. But if you're going to understand what's going on, you understand that you see, this president lean over, and then you see his wife pull up and put her hand like to his throat. And this is when you see, his murder right there. That's when you see his murder. When she leans over on him, her hand is blocked out from the only view that you have. And so she could have very easily had the gun herself and shot him herself. Because if you want to get it done, don't you put it in the hand of the person that's right next to him? If you want to get it done, aren't the people in the car with you the ones that would be the easiest to take you out? Why do you need a shot from way across somewhere when you got this game and you can get anybody to do it? Do you see what I'm saying? They had a video. This was a crazy thing. They had a video of Jackie Kennedy, right? While they were, kind of in the White House, and they were doing the press type of thing, and they were asking Jackie Kennedy questions. And he says, the reporter says to Jackie Kennedy, "Well, you really love him, don't you?" And she said, "No, to his own death, unless he knew what was going to happen to him and he signed up for it. Unless he was put into a position where he didn't have a choice because of the alliances that he made and, the people he crossed and the deals that he established. He couldn't get out of it. Sacrifice himself." You see what I'm saying? How many people are doing that? Do you see what I mean? This is the danger that you're in America, where you have this invisible cult that runs everything. And I mean, you find out who they are. You find out it's the Ashkenazim because they're the people that you can't talk about. They're the people that are bombing people and you can't even say nothing about them. It's them. That's where this black magic, this witchcraft, this, secret society, this is, where it stems at, right? This is where it comes from. And so you got to be on the right side of it. You've got to make sure that you're on the right side. Otherwise, you end up, in this wild game as a victim of the game. Like all these people that you see before you. Puff Daddy's not not just a player of the game, he's a victim, right? Because he was victimized when he first came in, just like he's victimizing now. He's a victim of the game, right? Even though he's the one of the biggest victimizers, he's had to do that. That's what his role is in the game. Same thing for Jay-Z, same thing for R. Kelly, same thing for Garth Brooks, same thing for Meg the Stallion, same thing for Miley Cyrus, same thing for Nicki Minaj, same thing for Lil Wayne, same thing for Kevin Spacey, same thing for Tom Hanks. You see what I'm saying? Same thing for Tom Cruise and Will Smith. Same thing for Eminem. You see what I'm saying? Same thing for Troy Aikman. Do you see what I mean? These people are not who you think they are. Same thing for Ben Roethlisberger. You guys have heard of the craziness that Ben Roethlisberger gets into. Same thing for all of these guys, man. These guys, same thing for Aaron Hernandez. How do you have an NFL player that's actually a hitman? Because this is why they have NFL players, right? So that they can have hitmen that can go from city to city killing people and you would never know it. Do you see what I mean? These are the real serial killers, the people who are hitmen that are in these cults that are taking people out. And you're like, oh my gosh, Aaron Hernandez, yeah, go. What was these Patriots? What was it? Go Patriots. Yo, they keep cutting my live, man. I don't know if they're actually, everybody will always say that, oh, they don't want the truth out. They cut my live. I don't know if that's what's actually going on, but my live is being cut a bunch today. I don't know why. Would you cut my live? Ain't nobody out here, ain't nobody seeing it. But I mean, this is what reality is all about. Steve McNair. Steve McNair killed in these very mysterious circumstances with his girlfriend, right? Very mysterious circumstances, Steve McNair's death. You guys know Steve McNair, quarterback for the Titans, famous quarterback for the Titans. You know, mysterious, infamous death, infamous circumstances surrounding, you know, his death, right? From the hand of his ex, right? Something crazy. Do you see what I mean? Because they're all a part of this game, and it comes from anywhere, from everywhere, right? And so that's what we mean. This is what we're talking about here is um, the way that this satanic cult operates in society, from the president to, you know, the street preacher. Do you see what I'm saying? And the street preacher being the rapper. Because this is the influence that rappers have today, like preachers, they're preaching. And so it goes from the top to the bottom, from the in to the out, all around, and then embedded in society in a way that you can't see. Just the way that it is. I was hoping I would get a little bit more participation on this one, and I've been extending the conversation just a little bit to see if it would get anybody to jump on and kind of delve into these topics with me. But we didn't end up getting anybody this time. We'll go ahead and close it out. But this is the understanding that I want you guys to have. And of course, we are protected by Yahweh, Elohim of Yisrael. So we don't worry about the cult or what is, you know, actively after us, because it is. We just watch and, you know, pay close attention to what's going on so that we can dodge the traps. Okay, you guys, everybody be safe out there. Shalom, shalom.